meeting of the San Francisco Cannabis Oversight Committee. Secretary, can we get the roll call, please?
Yes, sir. C1, Mohammed Mali, or a representative from Public Health, is absent today. C2, Lieutenant Lang is here. Thank you so much. C3, Stephen Swamp from, or a rep from DBI is here. Thank you. C4, Matthew Chandler, also here. C5 is currently unfilled. C6, Dylan Rice, or a rep from the Entertainment Commission, is absent today. And seat 7, Victor Wong, or a representative from the Fire Department, who's double checking on the line. They are also absent today. Seat 8, Chairperson Ali Jamalia.
Present.
Seat 9, Vice Chairperson Adam Hayes.
Present.
Seat 10 is currently unfilled. Seat 11, Apollo Wallace.
Present.
Seat 12, Makari Donaldson.
Present.
Seat 13, David Nogales Talley.
Present.
Seat 14, Shay Gilmore.
Present.
Seat 15 is currently unfilled. And seat 16, Antoinette Mobley.
Present.
Perfect. With 7 voting members present, we've established a quorum and we may begin the meeting.
Thank you. That concludes item number 1. Moving on to item number 2, if you could read out the Latin acknowledgement, please.
Of course. The San Francisco Cannabis Oversight Committee recognizes that we are on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the indigenous stewards of this land and in accordance with their traditions, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. As guests, we recognize that we benefit from living and working on their territorial homeland. We wish to pay our respects by acknowledging the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush Ohlone community and by affirming their sovereign rights as First People. First People speak.
Thank you. That concludes item number 2. Moving on to general public comment. Members of the public may address the committee on any topics that are not on the agenda today and within the jurisdiction of the committee. With that, I'd like to open for general public comment, please.
Or thing.
I'll speak,
Uh,
if possible.
yes, we have some instructions.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
I have put the instructions up on the screen. I will continue to do so throughout the meeting as public comment comes up. But I will read it aloud here for the first time so that anyone who's listening in will know as well. For any members of the public attending in person, please line up behind this table and you'll be able to give your public comment from this podium in a moment. For our remote viewers, please note that you have 2 options to provide public this time. The first option is to call in by phone. If you would like to use this option, please dial 1-415-655-0001, followed by this access code, 2490-464-0581. You may need to enter the meeting passcode, which is 27967895. Then press *3 when prompted to do so. You may be muted if there are others in the queue before you. If so, please wait until you hear a prompt on your phone to unmute. This is your indication that it is your turn to comment. Please press *6 to unmute and then begin your public comment. Once your time has elapsed, you will be muted again. Option 2, you can submit your comments by chat. I will read the chat comments into the record after they come in. The chat box is open, so feel free to submit your comments at this time. One final reminder, each member of the public may address the committee for up to 3 minutes. When the number of speakers exceeds the 15-minute limit, general public comment may be moved to the end of the agenda at the discretion of the chairperson. If the individual would like to make the first public comment, feel free to step up. That's not a microphone, by the way. State your name for the record if you like.
Yeah.
And I'll start your timer and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
I'm Chris Calloway. I'm the applicant. I have several dispensaries here in the city. As some of you may know, I submitted a letter of determination request to the planning department about 9 months ago. And that request was to clarify the 600-foot rule in San Francisco and the permitting process kind of around it. And really our specific question was, can an applicant move forward by past planning if a previous applicant has removed its application, even though that they went through the planning process, they removed their application. There's other applications in hold. Can they move forward? That was what I asked them. It looks like it's going to go to a Board of Appeals hearing. So I'm just letting everybody know that this actually will impact other people in the system that maybe have an application on hold behind somebody. So I think really what I've experienced in the program is it's really challenging to secure your real estate and to move through the process. Planning is like this massive hurdle to get over. And I understand the intent of the program was to, not create a chaotic permitting environment, but it's kind of what has ensued. What we have now is dozens of vacant storefronts across the city that have been held for years, right? Some of those storefronts were vacant for years before this planning process started. And afterwards, we're left with just not that storefront that's vacant, but other people on hold with vacant storefronts, right? And in my case, I put in 3 applications behind my original application that went to planning because I have the most detestable landlord in the city, essentially. It's well known how bad this guy is. And he performed a seismic retrofit that took him 5 years to complete. So I got through planning within a year, but he wouldn't finish the seismic retrofit and he kind of held that over my head while I was going through the process. So what I would like to ask the committee, if possible, because this has been a 6-year nightmare for me. And I don't know if anybody else has done anything even close to this, but I would like to open this up to public comment to see how our permitting process right now is reflecting the goals of the equity program. Are we really meeting what we intended to do with this program? Because from my perspective, it seems like the golden lottery ticket that's being given to people is the landlords of San Francisco. The generational wealth that we intended to create through the program is being passed on to these landlords through land use entitlements. Planning should have no more than a rubber stamp on a drawing when it comes across their desk at this point. We've gone through countless conditional use hearings. They've all been approved for the most part. 30 seconds, thank you. If somebody wants to move their dispensary next door within 600 feet, it shouldn't become a major neighborhood battle to do so. If we're gonna allow cannabis cafes to be in San Francisco, we need to have a clear and simple permitting process that allows applicants and business owners to do that, so we don't face a 5-year permitting process with planning who is greatly overstepping their authority and importance in the process of permitting cannabis businesses. Thank you.
So much. The next individual would like to make a public comment, please step up to the podium. Feel free to state your name for the record, and I'll start your timer when you do, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Hakeem Lashal, I'm a Golden Gate Cannabis Company, and I was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first 7 equity applicants to join the program. Converted my dad's old liquor store to a dispensary, that was, again, an interesting transition with planning the program. But I'm here today because the center of discussion is the grants. I found out the hard way that this year the grants were changed, the criteria were changed. Basically, someone in the beginning that followed the original criteria of 60/40 was no longer eligible for any grants this last year because it was moved to either 50/50 or 60/40 the other way, I don't recall. I really find this unconscionable because I would really like to know what that did to the program itself. Meaning if 90% of the equity applicants were served by the old grant numbers, I'd really like to know what it was this year. Because I have to be honest, I would imagine it's like lower than 10%, which I doubt would be the, inherent, let's just say, spirit of the program. We're all hurting. I'd have to say 90% of us are down 50% if you're lucky. That's probably more for most of us. So I really want you guys to take a good hard look at that. It's something that can be changed. I hope it is changed. And if you can't change it, maybe you guys can come up with a grandfather rule that people that originally got a grant are still able to get grants in the future. Because I'm telling you right now, it's going straight to taxes, which I've heard are being raised to 19% for excise come 2024. And I don't think anyone's even talked about a city tax yet, which I told, pray to God, I guess stayed for another year. I don't know if that's your guys' feelings. That's pretty much all I have to say on the subject.
Thank you very much for the comments. Next individual who would like to comment, feel free to step up to the podium, state your name for the record if you'd like. I will start the timer then, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Graham Goodwin, Media Director, San Francisco Barney Mary Democratic. I wanted in for the people viewing, 4 bills that passed the legislature. It is under the, at the desk of the governor. And I just wanted to briefly, mention AB 255 is the compassion bill, the renewal of SB 34. AB 1775 is the cannabis cafe bill, which has been talked about. SB 1059 is the double taxation outlaw, if you will, which is important. And AB 1111 is the farmers market, allowing small cannabis growers to sell in state sanctioned, I guess. So I sent in my recommendations to the governor, and I would encourage everybody to, and I don't know if it's appropriate to have any discussion, but I would love to hear, some of them are no-brainers, but I'd be curious on the farmers market thing to hear from retailers and others, because although I support it, I also understand that could have a impact on our retailers who are really in a difficult position. So I'd love to hear some things. So go to calnormal.org, got all the information, please send the governor. My only other point in my last 30 seconds is to mention that if you didn't know, in November, we're going to be voting. And there's a lot of things going on in beyond the presidential. And for cannabis people, we should be looking at these candidates through that one of those lenses. And the Brighton Mary Democratic Club is going to meet next Wednesday to talk about the mayor's race and give a recommendation. So I'll be very interested in hearing from our fellow cannabis people on this, because it has a big importance. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comment. I'm sure you know, feel free to step up to the podium, state your name for the record if you like. I'll start the timer then, and then I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joyce Hicks. My business is called Pieces and Pieces LLC. I am a San Francisco verified equity. And what I would like to speak about is about the grant that they provide for equity. I've been in this process for since 2018, and it's been a great program. The grant has helped me with a lot of things that's needed for my build out and other things for the architect and everything. But what I do want to know more is that I know it goes by the percentage of your business. I don't have no business partner or anything, but this program is very helpful. I know it have helped me do a lot. I'm in a situation, I had spinal surgery, so I can't move as fast as I used to, but I'm still going. And I just wanted to thank the Office of Cannabis for supporting me. Julia, Jerry, and Evelyn, the whole team has helped me through this process, but it will get better. I'm still in my build out, and I mean, have this incident, I have to start all over with the planner department, because if you're not active, they make you pay over again. So yesterday, to get my job card, I have to pay $2,300. These costs is a lot, like if you don't have the funds or anything. But what I wanted to ask the Office of Cannabis, how could you guys integrate with the planner department? Because these fees are high. Some people just don't have that. Like I'm paying $2,300 again because it expired. So to get my job card tomorrow, I'm gonna go pay it, but I still have to keep moving forward because they can't work without that job card. So I just want to thank you guys. And this is a great opportunity to come here and speak in front of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comments. Chairperson, I have not seen any hands raised online or any call-in scrolling comments.
Thank you. That concludes item number 3. Moving on to item number 4. For our committee members, we could review the regular agenda and approve or make any recommendations to change it. I think our agenda is pretty packed today, so
Transportation needs to be just a while.
I'll need to approve.
Second.
Can we open up for public comment?
Yes, we can. For any members of the, I'm going to repeat the instructions, just in case folks didn't hear the first time around. It looks like we have a few new attendees, and I'm going to put them up on screen again. For any members of the public attending in person, please line up behind the table to provide public comment. For our remote viewers, please note that you have 2 options to provide public comments at this time. The first option is to call in by phone. If you would like to use this option, please dial 1-415-655-0001, followed by this access code, 2490-464-0581. You may also need to enter the meeting password 279-67895. Then press *3 when prompted to do so. You may be muted if there are others in the queue before you. If so, please wait until you hear the prompt on your phone to unmute. This is your indication that it is your turn to comment. Please press *6 to unmute and then begin your public comment. Once your time has elapsed, you will be muted again. Excuse me. Option 2, you can submit your comments by chat. The chat box is open and I will read your comments as they come in. I see no public commenters in person, no hands raised online, and no comments in the chat.
Thank you. Close public comment, and can we get a vote on the motion to adopt the agenda, please?
Yes, sir. Chairperson Ali Jamalian, how do you vote? Vice Chairperson Adam Hayes, how do you vote?
Aye.
C10 is currently unfilled. C11 Apollo Wallace, how do you vote?
Aye.
C12 Jakari Donaldson, how do you vote?
Aye.
C13 David Nogales Talley, how do you vote?
Aye.
C14 Shay Gilmore, how do you vote? Aye. C15 is currently unfilled. C16 Antoinette Mobley, how do you vote? Oh, Antoinette, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, my mic was muted. Aye.
Oh, no worries. Thank you, Antoinette.
Sure.
7 ayes. That vote passes to accept the agenda as it is.
Thank you. Concluding agenda item number 4, moving on to 5, review and approve of last meeting's minutes. I think we've all had a chance to read them while we were waiting for the meeting to start. Do we have a motion to adopt or make edits?
Motion.
Second. Can we open up for public comment?
Yes, we may. Members of the public attending in person, feel free to line up if you'd like to make a comment again about last meeting's minutes. For those of us attending remotely, the instructions on how to comment are now on screen. I will leave it up for a moment to ensure that the people able to get on the screen. Mayor person, I have not seen any comments. I've not seen any commenters here in person. I'm not seeing any hand raised online.
Great. Then can we get a vote on the motion?
Yes, we may vote on the motion to adopt the minutes from the last meeting. Chairperson Ali Jamalian, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Adam Hayes, how do you vote?
Aye.
C10 is currently unfilled. Seat 11 Apollo Wallace, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 12 Jakari Donaldson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 13 David Nogales Talley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 14 Shay Gilmore, how do you vote? Aye. Seat 15 is currently unfilled. Seat 16 Antoinette Mobley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Great, thank you so much. With that, the minutes from last meeting are adopted as is.
Thank you. That concludes item number 5. Moving on to item number 6, Office of Cannabis will provide an update and status of their work. With that, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will be providing the update today with a little bit of support from the rest of the staff here with me. I'm going to go ahead and read some of this information,
I'm on this committee meeting. Let them know. Thanks.
ask questions as we go along. So currently the number of permanent permits that have been issued is 66, just 5 more than since our last update, which would have been at our last meeting about 2 months ago. There's a change. All applications in the OOC system have been picked up for processing, and newly submitted applications will begin processing immediately upon submission. Brief reminder, the moratorium on retail submissions is in place, so any new applications for non-retail types would be picked up immediately. Retailers would still have to wait until the moratorium ends at the beginning of 2028. We're currently continuing to process MCDs and temps, with more entering the final stage of the processing. But we do urge anyone with an active application to respond to the OOC's requests for information immediately. If you have any questions, or if you're not getting emails from us, please email us at officeofcannabis@sfgov.org, officeofcannabis@sfgov.org. Grants, we're going to hear a lot about today. Currently, for this iteration of grants that is happening right now, we are in the redistribution phase. Recipients are still submitting expenses for reimbursement and working with our grants team in the OOC to ensure that all forms and documentation is properly submitted. This term is currently set to end in the middle of October. And in terms of progress on our current spend down, we are about 93% of the way through this current grant. And that's around $1.3 million has been dispersed. In terms of enforcement, enforcement actions continue as they are flagged through public outreach 311, SFPD, SFDPH, and our other city partners. In partnership with the DCC, the OOC recently enforced against an illicit cannabis operation, during which around 6,400 plants were seized, along with 82 pounds of processed flower and 471 pounds of shake were all confiscated. Between July of 2023 and the end of June in 2024, the OOC conducted 50 compliance inspections, as well as 89 enforcement actions. And we have a reminder from the enforcement team to all operators, please ensure you're working closely with analysts and inspectors to facilitate the timely processing of your annual renewals. The annual renewal process involves an online submission of a form and related documentation, as well as an inspection by OOC staff. Again, if you have any questions about a renewal, please email us, officeofcannabis@sfgov.org. Oh, yeah, sorry.
I love what you just said. Is there a way for us to get those stats, or is there an easy way for us to access? I love what you're talking about the current permitting. I know you give it to us every meeting. It's awesome.
Yeah, like in real time.
Right. And then also this enforcement information, I think is really interesting. I'd love to have my hands on it.
Yes, in terms of permitting numbers and things, we don't have anything currently set up, like a tracker on our website or something like that. I guess that's something you might be able to look into. I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know what the capabilities are, but we can certainly look into it. In terms of enforcement numbers, we don't often publicize that stuff besides these meetings, obviously. I would defer to Director Patel if there's confidentiality issues or.
Typically, the data is accumulated from fiscal year reporting, so that's why you have that particular range. We do provide sort of biannual updates, so we can certainly share them as we do that.
Thank you.
2.0.
Perfect. Moving into updates relating to the DCC. We've been continually distributing information concerning product recalls that are enacted by the Department of Cannabis Control through our listserv. If you've not been receiving these notices, please contact the Office of Cannabis at officeofcannabis@sfgov.org. Most of these notices are recalls. They often contain very important safety information from the DCC concerning faulty or harmful products. And then on the operator side, so that's more the consumer side of it. On the operator side of it, operators can face pretty significant fines or penalties for a failure to comply with those recalls. So it is certainly in both operators and consumers' best interest to be getting that information. And one final little update on some legislation that has been moving across the state. We heard a little bit earlier about AB 255 and SB 1059. Those are the passion bill and the double taxation bill, respectively. Bram also mentioned AB 1775, which is the quote-unquote cannabis cafes bill. That was recently passed through the Senate, and it had already passed the Assembly. The most likely next step is a consolidation of any differences between versions between the chambers, and then if the bill's going to be sent to the governor. So he did veto the last version of this bill. It remains to be seen what the future for this bill is going to be. AB 1111, that's what people colloquially are calling the farmers market cannabis bill. That also has passed the Assembly and just recently passed the Senate. That would require the DCC no later than January 1st of 2026. And this is a quote from the bill: to issue small producer event sales licenses that authorize the license holder to sell cannabis or cannabis products at state temporary events. So just like the other bills, that bill's going to the governor to either sign or veto. After that, it will be up to the DCC to distribute information about how this bill is going to be regulated or enforced. So we are currently waiting on more information about that. It's unclear how similar it will be to the current temporary cannabis events regulations, or if there will be carve-outs made for this new bill.
Scott, if I could just add to that.
Sure.
I think suffice it to say, given the way that it is presented to the legislature, there will be questions that have to be ironed out, especially in terms of whether this falls under the existing temporary event permits, or if it will be a class of its own, whether the DCC will create a carve-out for a certain permit type, or if for urban jurisdictions. There are a lot of questions that we have. We are waiting to see what happens with this particular bill, and I suspect it will take some time after that to see what the implementation is, if it does pass. So just a little bit of a heads up.
And then finally, that's a perfect segue into our temporary cannabis events discussion that we've been having for some time now. The big update here is that the Office of the Controller's City Performance Team is currently in the process of conducting focus groups with cannabis events and venue stakeholders about the expansion project, which the committee has already heard about pretty extensively. City Performance will likely conduct 2 rounds of focus groups, and then they will share those findings, most likely at the committee next meeting, depending on the exact timeline, and then also barring any major unforeseen circumstances. And that's the update.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any comments, questions before we open up for public comment? All right, do we open up for public comment, please?
Yes, sir. For our remote attendees, I have just put the instructions back up online. For our in-person attendees, feel free to line up over here. We know the drill by now. At the podium, if you'd like to make public comments, state your name for the record if you'd like. I'll start your timer as soon as you start speaking, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Graham Goodwin, Primary Democratic Club. I just wanted to comment on what Dennis talked about, which is the controller, the events, in terms of focus groups. I'd just like to put out there that I hope, as part of the focus groups, that there's consumers involved, because there should be. And I know this is a complaint that you hear from me, but I think consumers, again, are left on the side in almost every one of these issues. And I don't think it's right, because without consumers, there's no money. And I think consumers should have input in that, especially on events, because what you're trying to do is attract. And it's nice to hear from business people or event producers. That's all nice, and we want it. But consumers are part of this equation. So I would encourage the Office of Cannabis maybe to feedback to them to make sure that, now maybe they're included and we don't know, but I would just like to make that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your public comment. We have another individual attending in person. Feel free to step up to the podium and start your public comment, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay, my name is Angela White. I'm here, I do program management for Success Centers. I just wanted to speak a little bit about this. I recently was able to attend grassroots, for the first time, and I don't know how many years that's been going on. But I felt wonderful out there because we were able to, as a nonprofit serving marginalized community with jobs and things of that nature. Thank you, Jennifer, and those of you who helped to donate for our will, for giving prize giveaways. But it was such a warm feeling to have, to be a nonprofit in that space. We're doing great work, but a lot of community doesn't know that we can exist in so many cases. And so I wanted to make sure that when folks are planning this type of events, to contact us because we want to be a part of it. This is my lifestyle, serving community and making sure that we're included.
Thank you so much for your post comment. Chairperson, I see no more attendees in person, no comments in the chat, and no hands raised online.
Great, that concludes item number 6. I recommend we take a 5-minute bathroom break and then come back for items number 7, 8, and 9.
For our online attendees, we're going to take a 5-minute bathroom break, and we will return in about 5 minutes. Folks, we are going to get started back here. You want to vote? Looks like that individual put their pen down. That's great. Okay, we're going to go.
Thank you. All right, resuming the meeting, agenda item number 8, which,
We're on 7, right?
oh, 7, sorry, my bad. Legislative change to the ordinance 200144. The idea behind that is really because, while we're okay with the moratorium, and the moratorium was something that the community came around and got together, sort of, took a lot of public comment, a lot of input. The market has changed. There are some local players and social equity applicants in particular that, might have disputes with landlords, might not actually go through with their application. And the idea is that planning, the work that went into planning, and I think somebody brought up a general public comment as well, that the entitlement is not for nothing. And the approach was to let the Office of Cannabis, which already has some discretion in moving applications or permit applications or temporary permits, to give them an additional layer of discretion for existing permit equity applicants that might want to move the venue to one that's been abandoned. That's really the ethos of it. So it wouldn't really add to the pipeline that was existing, because that's obviously the spirit of the moratorium. The moratorium took the pipeline of existing applications into consideration, but a lot of those won't come online. So now we have, essentially equity applicants that probably worked hard to get to plan phase 1 or phase 2 of their application that won't be able to see it through, which doesn't mean another equity applicant shouldn't have a shot at that project. And that's really where the spirit of this recommendation is coming from. We definitely want as much public comment from retailers, current applicants that are about to get to phase 2 or just completed phase 1. Basically, people affected by this. I think having Drakari here is a really, really good addition to the conversation, because you are an equity applicant in retail who partnered up with a local group. And that's kind of why I really wanted to make this available. A lot of small business operators like you, like me, that live here, but that don't have access necessarily to MSO capital. And having a property that's been pre-vetted has a lot of value in our application process. And with that, I would like to open up for discussion.
Yeah, I mean, my thought on it is, I feel like, we're still at a point where the city is overly saturated with retail, cannabis retail. And, with that, I just think that we need to focus on the ones that are already existing and that are struggling right now, versus figuring out ways to open up more, which is gonna cause a bigger struggle, right? The city still has a long fight to get back to where it was. And I know that there has been some improvement, but there's still a long way to go, and I just don't think that we're ready to open up more stores than what we already have, plus what's already in the existing pipeline. So,
Well, this is the existing pipeline. We wouldn't add to the existing pipeline. If anything, we would just increase the chances of the existing pipeline to become a reality. So there's no touching the existing. You can't add new applications. But let's say you rented a place, you're not gonna make it across the line, ran out of money, whatever that may be, decided not to do it. And then there is a guy that's buffered out by, right? Why shouldn't that applicant be able to go and try to make a deal with that landlord? Or, or like another local applicant who's in the pipeline, but it's gonna be longer for that particular property to be built out or come online versus one that's being withdrawn. And I do believe that the Office of Cannabis does have the shot clock, right? Isn't that what you were referring to earlier? Like we're checking up on applicants. I think if the shot clock removes you, that address should be free game for another applicant.
Do we have an idea of how many numbers there are people who are not
Yes.
able to?
I think there's a few people I can help.
What's specific numbers?
Do we have an idea of how many people are not being able to go all the way through the process?
Like phase 2 applications pending. Can we get a rough number?
My thought is if there's 10 applications that have fallen off, there may be a possibility for 10 people to take those bids, or just.
And earlier, someone spoke about predatory landlords. This is also a way to give a little bit of power back to the operators. Because if the landlord knows I have a choice to go to one of these 50 abandoned applications, that gives you a much different leverage to negotiate a lease in the city.
Yes, sorry, I'm trying to get you like the most confident.
And I have absolutely no skin in the retail game. I'm just seeing that the spirit of our program was to get as many equity applicants across the finish line. And some of us made it earlier than others, but that doesn't mean we should close the market off behind us. That's not the spirit. And especially us equity applicants, we should help other equity applicants get online, not try to close the market behind us. And I don't think the city is sufficiently supplied with cannabis stores. There's still neighborhoods that are incredibly difficult to get cannabis access. West Portal is one of them, very difficult to get access in West Portal. Even the outer Sunset, sure, we have a couple applications, but south of Judah becomes very difficult to access product. So, quite a few people that live in that neighborhood. So I do agree with you. Some neighborhoods are clearly saturated, others are not.
yeah, and I think that's just like the other big concern of mine, right, is that I'm thinking about the situation where, let's just say there's equity license in I don't know, in Richmond or Nob Hill, and there is a larger conglomerate that has tried to come into a location that's 601 square feet away, right? We go through the process, it's a fight basically, and they don't get approved, right? So now another group can come in and get that equity.
Well, that's why we're discussing. It'd be good to have that, for example, limited to someone who maybe does own the majority and is not partnered up with an MSO, right? So again,
But that's having them still go into that space, it's not beneficial to anyone because you have an already existing dispensary that's nearby, that's less than a football field away, right? And you have other ones that are also equal distance from that location. And so it just becomes more and more saturated. I don't think that we need more dispensaries in San Francisco.
But you're talking very specifically about your street and your business.
I'm talking specifically about that type of scenario, right?
What-
Like, do we need more dispensaries in the city at this time? I don't.
Well, every application has the right to become a dispensary. Every application that made it before the moratorium was enacted, and those are the ones we're talking about. So we're really talking about the applications that are already submitted. There's no new people coming in. There would be those applicants because, again, a lot of applicants fail because of predatory landlords, the build out cost is too high, and the work that the city put in verifying those documents, planning, 600-foot rule, looking at what is necessary to get a job card. I just don't think we should throw all those resources away.
Is there a way to filter these applications for locations in areas that are not saturated?
My thought is there's a couple areas that are for sure really saturated city. It's unfortunate that the city has been broken up in ways that like force that. But yeah, is there a way to identify areas that are less saturated, you know, not saturated, but just less saturated and maybe kind of move this towards that?
Well, I think what you're seeing right now, if you look on Valencia, there's a few applications that never came to fruition. So when the areas are very saturated, often the operators pull out because they see it the same way. I don't think an operator wants to be wedged between you and Russian Hill Cabins, which is probably why they walked away from that. But I do think between the market forces, we should just create a path for someone to have a chance at it. That's also the very purpose of this committee, is to lower the barrier for social equity applicants to become an operator.
And to protect the existing.
No, that's not part of our, that's idea.
I think it is.
Boy, it's not though. The way it's written, we're really here to lower the barrier. And that's really
Yeah.
what we're trying to do.
Just to be 100% clear, right, we're talking about previously entitled parcels. So somebody else already went through the process, got reasonably far along, the land use was established, but for whatever reason, the project has stalled. And then are we talking about current applications that are already in our system and maybe they're on hold or something like
Yes.
that, moving into that space?
Correct.
We're not talking about opening a pathway for new applications for those parcels, right?
Exactly,
Just to be sure.
exactly what it is. It's basically redistributing or making available what entitlements that are gonna be abandoned or withdrawn. I mean, you have to withdraw the application first, right? For anybody to come in. But there's a lot of those properties. I'm sure you guys know better than I do. And are we just gonna let them all fail?
This is such a great platform for discussion and really encouraging. There's a lot of smart folks on the committee who represent different seats with varying perspectives. So it's a really good opportunity for additional members to weigh in on their perspectives as well. That's my diplomatic way.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
This is someone that has run out of money and is abandoning their storefront. Why wouldn't someone else be able to just come in? Like what's?
Exactly.
What if somebody else is buffering out that application? I'm sorry.
There are already, obviously someone just said it, but there are already a lot of safeguards in place that you just can't come in and swoop on someone.
No, we're not.
But like,
For that,
for
but if
example,
you're,
there's
if you're
an app,
keeping it, like,
yeah, then it should,
that should be absolute.
there's value there.
I see
It's not-
enough empty storefronts in San Francisco.
That was the next thing I
And
was
I
gonna
see
say.
enough boba shops closing and opening up with a new boba shop,
Right.
so.
Right, and we do have a problem with obviously vacant retail space, but like, one example is, there's an application on Valencia. If that application gets withdrawn, there is one within 600 foot that'll get bumped up. That's another mechanism that allows at least somebody else to come online. But why do we not have that for properties where there's nobody in the buffer zone? I guess that's what we really figure out.
I think it makes sense to me.
It's a lot of work
If
to
it's
get
nothing,
entitlements. I mean, we heard how much permitting is, so. And yeah, to your point, even the people that drafted the moratorium were okay with the pipeline getting worked off. That was part of the calculation. So I don't think we're changing any numbers. We're just increasing the odds for someone to become a cannabis business operator.
Like I said, I agree that our goal should be, one of our main goals should be, again, absolutely lower the bars of entry, barrier to entry. It's super difficult to do anyways. I mean, honestly, I'd love to see, I'll say, after speaking to many operators and dispensary owners as well, like the general consensus, they're like, I don't exactly know what I want it to be, but it seems like we're still impacted. If anything, I'd like to see, personally, just if we have a number of licenses that have followed, that nobody's in that spot, maybe on like a trial basis, opening up like 1 or 2, and then maybe seeing what the responses from the community.
I mean, that's a good way to present any kind of test project, sure, but then how do you pick who qualifies for that? I mean, at the end of the day, the office has to do everything in a transparent and fair way, right? But I do think we should find out how many even would be potentially affected by it, right?
Is it concern just cannabis on top of a cannabis on top of a cannabis business?
Pretty much.
But that's
yeah.
the person's business plan. If you're an idiot, if you have an ice cream shop and I open up right next to you and sell ice cream, I'm the idiot. Like, you're selling ice cream. I think I'm gonna split our business enough where I'm gonna get a profit, you're gonna get a profit. I'm coming with a bad business plan.
I mean, I
So,
think that there just has to be a lot of restrictions based on, like, I guess who the owner's gonna be, also just like where they're allowed to open, right? I think, fine, like, why don't we just focus on the deserts, the cannabis deserts in San Francisco, right? I think a majority of San Francisco is blanketed with enough dispensaries to serve the entire population of San Francisco
absolutely, but
already.
if I'm opening up a business, I'm gonna have the brain to say, I'm gonna go where there's not one near me.
There's a lot of money is already
You may have
invested.
more resources, right? And then you could just dry out the next person.
And that's a strategy.
And that, I think, is what's toxic about
Someone coming in with big backing and trying to knock out someone smaller.
exactly.
Well,
And
our
that's what
social
that
equity,
opens up the possibility for.
our social equity applicant pipeline has different, just like when you guys talk about grants. There's 100% owners, there's 60-40 owners, there's 50-50. So you could definitely work them off in the priority, which would start with the fully social equity owned businesses. Those are not a lot of MSOs in there, I think actually zero. So, there's ways to do this. And I understand your concern, Rukari, but those applications were in before. So if there's an application within 601 foot of you, that's fair game. That was the law. Those are the regs that you also use to get your applications in. So that's gonna be the same for everyone. And that's what competition is. We compete with 500 other pre-rolls. I can go around California and say you can't roll pre-roll. That's just that's our business model, right? So as long as it's conform and within regulation, then that's an application that deserves it as much as you and I deserve.
Is there also ownership requirements? I remember to have, so if I start a dispensary tomorrow, I had a pipeline, I need to own my part of that business for how long?
5 years,
5 years.
from the date of submission of the application, if you're an equity applicant specifically.
Yeah, I said that's all.
It's equity apps. From data submission. And just to clarify too, the priority processing thing, it would be all VEAs get that priority processing. So whether you're a 40% owner or a 100% owner, at that point, it would depend on.
Right, but when we make a recommendation.
Yeah, it would be all.
When we make a recommendation, we could differentiate.
You could, yeah, and they could legislatively, differentiate that if they adjust the code.
My thought would be also having a requirement to own the business for a certain amount of time, even though that clock has already started, having it be 5 years. Just knowing that a lot of people right now are getting very desperate and having to sell their licenses. I mean, having a great, local dispensary for a couple of years and then going to, a huge conglomerate, which it'll eventually happen, but it probably shouldn't be our incentive with what we're trying to do.
That's also the exit strategy for a lot of the social equity applicants, right? And that's what we try to get in generational wealth, which would then work. But no, I mean, I understand. And to me, it's just that we've all gone through the application process. It's lengthy, it's expensive. And just because you get stuck with your landlord or you're buffered out by somebody who's not gonna really come online, that shouldn't stop you. And that to me just seems inherently unfair.
So this particular topic has a lot of energy, right? And I think.
Yeah, I don't think we'll make a recommendation today.
Well, it's a good one, and I'm appreciating just listening to the conversation. This might be the right time to move to the public, see what people have to say in response to what said. And then if the ultimate decision is to table this and put it to the next meeting, that's fine as well. And if there's a soft recommendation, that's.
And I don't think there's a big rush on this moratorium for 2028, right? So it's not like we need to figure this out today. And I agree with Director Patel that we should just see what the community says. So if we're done discussing, I'd like to open up for public comment.
Where is that now? Can somebody who's backed by a bigger conglomerate or whatever, can they come in and?
Yeah, if there's social equity, and I think that if they own at least 50%, and I think there was another change that Mayor Breed did, which allowed us to dilute social equity applicants below 20, provided that you make some contributions to your social equity. But yes, there are mechanisms in force. This has all been sort of exercised through at one point. So you're probably not wrong. There's always there is a small chance that they will come in and finish it. But again, that social equity applicant that teamed up with an MSO also deserves to have a spot. Rudy from United Players is one of those guys. All the TV stores are UP guys. Glad that they got to do those things.
I think it is worth just sort of drawing the distinction between a business, so a location that has land use and capital invested, that's been operational, that is choosing to close and sell the business, versus, and that space then becoming open versus those that are still going through the process. And for one reason or not, cannot complete the process. So that location may have land use entitlement, but that particular applicant cannot move forward. So there's sort of two sides to this where the parcel may become available on the post permit possible sale side, and then also on the pre-permit issue side.
Yeah, well, thank you for delineating that. That's very important, yeah.
The final comments, anything from the committee?
No, we can open this other,
Open another comment, sure thing.
I'd like, but before we go to public comment, this is Antoinette. The word that resonates the most with me is equity, okay? And folks who are not applying through the social equity program, it seems as though 9 times out of 10, they aren't going to be able to compete necessarily with people who are applying their own capital, who are non-social equity applicants. And so I think we should really keep the word equity in mind because we want equity, right? And one of our members mentioned about San Francisco is already highly saturated. I think it would behoove us to look to see if certain locations are overly saturated. There should be something that says, hey, you know what? We got 600 people right now in this location. Um, um, so therefore, if a person with a social equity application run into a couple of hurdles, let's support that person because you already got 600 others operating there. And then what about people who live outside of these locations where it isn't so saturated? Like, for example, maybe in the Sunset or Pacific Heights or, something somewhere like that. Will people really have deep pockets? And I think where I'm going with this is, I think, and we may already have this regulation set in place, but when you say equity, I think we should do everything in our power to help support existing equity applicants. Look at the young woman who says, oh my God, I've got to come up with $2,300 more dollars. I just had a recent surgery and she doesn't have $2,300 of emergency funds somewhere that she can easily go and just access and say, okay, I got money to start this process again. How do you assist that person? By allowing others to just come in and apply and says, oh, well, you've had your chance. So I think equity should play a huge role in our conversations because that's one of the reasons why some folks are an equity applicant because they don't have the means to operate or finance their business as independent as others. So it's just my little,
thank you.
yeah, sure.
Thank you, Antoinette.
Thank
And with
you.
that, no public comment. You
Sure
don't mind reading the instructions?
Yes, sir. Since we just came back from a break, I'm putting the instructions back up online. I'm going to read them aloud once again for anyone who's listening. For any members of the public attending in person, please line up behind the table to provide public comments. For our remote viewers, please note that you have two options to provide public comment at this time. The first option is to call in by phone. If you would like to use this option, please dial 1-415-655-0001, followed by this access code 2490-464-0581. You may need to enter the meeting passcode, which is 27967895. then press star 3 when prompted to do so. You may be muted if there are others in the queue before you. If so, please wait until you hear a prompt on your phone to unmute. This is your indication that it is your turn to comment. Please press star 6 to unmute and begin your public comment. Once your time has elapsed, you will be muted again. Option 2, you can submit your comments by chat. The chat box is open and I will read your comments as they come in. I saw that there was an individual online who had their hand raised, but it's been raised for a little while, so I just want to remind folks, this is public comment for agenda item number 7. It's specifically this discussion about proposing an amendment to ordinance number 200-144. If you have a comment about any other items, fortunately, that needs to be submitted during the general public comment time. We do have commenters here in person, so feel free to state your name for the record if you like, and I'll start the timer and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Thank you. Chris Calloway again. So this issue is obviously very near and dear to my heart. And I want to just talk about a scenario where an equity applicant does run into a predatory landlord. He makes that very aware to the planning department, Department of Building, the Office of Cannabis. In my circumstance, what really prevented me from moving my project forward was a seismic retrofit performed by Rodrigo Santos. And the landlord refused to sign up on that, right? So even though I got past the second stage, I decided that if I opened at that location, I would cement the 600-foot buffer. I would have a valid permit from the Office of Cannabis. And I wouldn't be able to move my location next door to where I have a nice equitable landlord that wants to provide a fair market lease, right? So in the circumstance that Ali's talking about, where somebody has gone across the finish line at the planning department, but there's applications actually that have been submitted behind that original application. It's like I did. I went and stacked it back and put 3 applications behind my original one. And now, if I would have opened at 500 there, I would have offered myself out. And if I planning saying that I can't move those applications forward because there's already an existing CU there, right? So another applicant could come in at 500 Laguna, push out my other 3 applications because there's an existing CU, even though that's not how the code is stated, right? The code states a valid permit from the Office of Cannabis has to be issued at that location to create the 600-foot buffer. That's not the case in my case. So, and I know that you're trying to create opportunities for other people in the queue that maybe have applications on hold somewhere else that could move into a place that's already entitled. But if the landlord is able to kick out or has a dispute with that original equity applicant, they should lose their place in line. They don't get to hold that place just because they've simply crossed the finish line for planning. There's 4 other hurdles that they need to cross. They've got to cross TBI, State of California, and then back to the Office of Cannabis again. So what I'm suggesting is that we don't saturate the market with more dispensaries. We already have applications for queue. That's not what I'm saying is, but if someone already exists with a CU, I should be able to come in and negotiate a lease next door to that because that landlord doesn't have the first priority application in line anymore. He kicked out the equity applicant. He had an opportunity to come to the table and finish that project, but for whatever reason, it didn't happen, right? The original equity applicant in that situation should always be given a priority in that 600-foot buffer, especially in consideration, I know this is very personal, but I've spent 6 years, I've gone bankrupt in the process of trying to open dispensaries in Hayes Valley. And this is something that affects every single cannabis operator in the country right now. My case actually set precedent in bankruptcy because I was allowed to continue through the bankruptcy process. If anyone wants to discuss with me afterwards, I'd be happy to talk about it. But nobody in the equity program should be going bankrupt simply because of a planning interpretation that prevents their business from moving forward. On that note, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your public comment. The next individual would like to comment, please step up to the podium, state your name for the record if you like, and to get your public comment, I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Graham Goodwin, San Francisco, Barney Mary Democratic Club. I think it's a real interesting discussion. What I was wondering is, the real issue is that the city greenlined this, if you will, into a specific area over time before the new applicants came up. So they're very concentrated. What I'm wondering is, in Ali's kind of scenario, could, for example, an existing store that was in a very concentrated area, if there were other options out there, could they be allowed to move from their existing concentrated area to one of these desert, quote unquote, where an abandoned, if you will, project has happened. Because that's really the issue that we're talking about here, is the possibility of affordability. I'm using that word, I don't know what the legal terms are. But that's really what the problem is, the distribution. It's not the number of stores, in my opinion. It's not the number of stores that there's too many, it's that they're concentrated. Is there a way to use this mechanism to redistribute in a way that would help consumers? I want to bring that up again. And would help equity people and just the business climate, make them healthier. So I'd like to hear just an interpretation of that, if that's possible. Maybe from Ali, what would work in any way for what he's talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comments.
Mhm.
Feel free to step up to the podium, state your name for the record if you like. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds.
Came again, Golden Gate Games. I really want you guys to think, let's just say 5-10 years down the road. The reason why I say that is because I know that trying to get everyone in is in and of itself a good thing, but you also have to look at this in the lens of capitalism and economics. And this will become cannibal capitalism, because if there are too many licenses out there, everyone's licenses get diluted. And everyone wants, the goal here is to lift people up, let's just say out of poverty for some equity applicants, right? And bottom line is, this should have been done, as it was originally stated, was they wanted to follow the liquor license model, which never happened. Vertical integration never should have been allowed. And we're in a state right now where, I don't want to say there are too many dispensaries, but there is not enough business to go around for the existing dispensaries that exist. And you guys really need to be cognizant of the costs of opening up a business like this. It is not like opening up any other shop. You are not just responsible for sales tax. At the register, you are giving away 25% of your money, period. So if you're setting someone up for failure down the road, that really is something you guys need to take a really long, hard look at, because you want there to be enough to go around. You want the equity applicant to have some kind of, let's just say, sale, equity for later. And you don't want that license to be diluted to the point where it is worthless. Okay? And like I said, I'm one of the original people in the program. I think it was great. I think it's great that you guys did it. It's just, it's gotten to the point now where I'm really wondering, especially come January 1, when excise goes up to 19%, is it worth it anymore? And we're all wondering, like, is there enough of the pie to go around for everybody? And you guys might have glanced over this. I don't know if that's part of the map, but there's also those micro business delivery, places that serve a lot of those areas that you guys might talk about. I'm all for, hey, if I'm on the Great Highway and there's no dispensary down there and there is one later on, cool. But, I just have to think in my head, like, are we doing more harm than good? All right. I know I'm biased because I'm a retailer, but that really is just the raw economics of it. The more licenses that are out there, the more diluted it becomes. And all of these places cannot exist at the same time. That is just the raw truth. You know what I mean? Like you said, you can't open up an ice cream store right next to another one. One of you is the idiot. That's it.
Thanks so much for your public comment. Chairperson, I did see a hand raised online. Check in on that. I do not see any hands raised online at this moment. I believe
That concludes public comment. I don't think we'll make a recommendation. I'd like to hear from more applicants, actually people that are stuck in the line. So maybe we can try to encourage some of those to come and speak. Those are the most affected by this, not existing retailers. So we should really listen to them. So with that, I would just like to table this to a future meeting.
do we need a motion?
Do we need a motion to table? We're not required to
No,
make
we're
a
not required to take
recommendation.
action.
There's no vote.
Yep.
We took public comment. That concludes agenda item number 7.
Great.
I will pass on to Vice Chair Hayes now and recuse myself
Oh, yes.
for the next item. I think Ricari member will do the same, right?
You could do the next one.
Yeah.
And you can take it off.
Dispensary.
Ali, Ricari, can you hold on?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just as last time, there's a protocol for excusing yourself. If you just state your name, then you have a potential interest, if that's the case, in a cannabis business in San Francisco. And because the grants pertain to those kinds of businesses, you'll recuse yourself. They'll-
Yes. Yeah, I have to recuse myself. I'm the owner of multiple equity licenses and a recipient of grants, therefore I'm conflicted. I will recuse myself.
I also have to recuse myself. I am the owner of multiple free licenses here in San Francisco and a receiver of the grants.
We have one just late comment in the chat. I read that into the record.
Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. We had a comment on it, but we'll get it again.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Feel free to wait out in the lobby if you like. We budgeted 90 minutes for this. I'll come looking for you. So I see you out there. Actually, yeah, because Vice Chairperson and you will post future amendments and adjournment. You're welcome to leave.
I was gonna have, I didn't run this meeting.
Yeah, that's all. I didn't like to.
Before you go, you just appoint you.
Oh, I did. I already did.
Yes.
Yes.
You are welcome to leave. You are welcome to stay if you want to come back for the post future items and adjournment, but
Please don't, it's 90 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be out there waiting for you. Sweet.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Stretch out a little bit. Big boy town.
You are looking good. Okay.
Good afternoon, Luis Gonzalez, Associate Director of Cannabis. Great to see everyone. So today we're presenting for your discussion the upcoming round of cannabis equity grants, so known as COC 5. So I will just discuss the roadmap right now for the discussion. So just go to the next slide. So we will begin with an overview of the previous grant cycles. We will also discuss the grant surveys that the Office of Cannabis has conducted in the past. We will also talk about technical assistance and audits. And then we will move on to the questions pertaining to the next upcoming cannabis equity grants. So we will present grant disbursement questions and eligibility questions. So I will just do a quick overview of the previous grant disbursements. So to date, the Office of Cannabis has disbursed over $12 million for startup and ongoing costs of cannabis businesses across 90 businesses and to almost every permitted activity operator. So the numbers that we can see on the screen, they're rounded for and then my colleague, Scott, will talk about the service.
Yes, happy to. Julia, yes, as I'm sure folks on the committee are familiar, but for anyone who's watching online, we conduct surveys after each grant iteration, which just facilitates a little bit of dialogue between the recipients of the grants and the Office of Cannabis to find out some more information about who's getting the money, how is the money being utilized, how are people feeling about the program, are they receptive to it, do they feel like the program is working well, and what sort of an audience is the program hitting? So, or audience is the right word, but so these are some of our survey results from the last couple of years. You have the 3 different colors designating the 3 different rounds of the GoBiz grants that we've done so far. Astute observers will notice that we do not have a survey for GoBiz round 4, which is the grant iteration that is currently ongoing, that we're in the middle of redistribution efforts for. That is the grant cycle that will end in October. after the closure of that grant cycle, we will conduct another one of these surveys with all the grant recipients to check in on the same information. So this is more so just like a summary of some of the information that we've gotten in the past. If folks are interested, you can find a video online, and I'm sure the committee members remember that we had a pretty robust presentation that went through the GOBIS Round 3 survey results not too long ago in a lot more detail. So this is mostly just a breakdown of the race and ethnicity information that we've gathered over the last couple of surveys. So you can see that across the 3 grant iterations, some of the race and ethnicity breakdowns have remained the same, like in our Asian category here, but you can see that in other race and ethnicity groups, the number of recipients has gone up, right? So for example, in Black/African American, the numbers have continued to rise in terms of who is receiving these grants. It's not on the slide, but we did get some gender breakdown information as well during our last cycle. So last cycle, we were looking at about 68% male recipients, about 22% female recipients, about 4.5% of recipients who identified as transgender, about another 4.5 who declined to state their gender. I do want to note a few things. So our most recent GOBIS survey, well, for all the GOBIS surveys, this is all self-reported data, right? So the numbers should track pretty well, but again, there may be some flaws in the data resulting from that. Also, I want to put a little call to action out there for all of our operators that receive grants, either now or in the future. It is very important that you be responsive to these types of follow-up surveys that our office sends out to you, because a lot of this information not only informs our office in terms of the administration of the grants, but it also informs this committee, who are the ones who determine what are the criteria by which, we're going to determine the grant disbursements. And yeah, just again noting, GOBIS 4 is still ongoing. So as soon as that concludes, we will distribute another survey, and we'll have a lot more information about the GOBIS 4 round for you. Yes.
Any other jurisdiction that's a recipient of GOBIS grant money do this kind of survey?
Follow-up surveys?
Yeah.
It's not required by the grant, is it?
So it is required under the authorized in state statute. However, jurisdiction cannot mandate people report out demographics. It's voluntary. And then GOBIS consolidates all this data to report out to the state legislature. So if you're curious on GOBIS's website, it'll delineate between different programs and stuff.
Yeah, Jeremy is our grants wizard. And speaking of our grants wizard, I'm actually going to bring him up here to lead us through some audits. And then take us into the discussion on the current connection.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeremy Schwartz, Deputy Director, Office of Cannabis. I just want to acknowledge, first and foremost, appreciative how folks took time out of their busy schedules to be here, commuting from far away to really take an active role and contributing to the policy recommendations today. Certainly with our committee members as well. This is a lot of the work you do is very important, and this is one star in that constellation that is very meaningful to a lot of our operators and social equity community. So with that, just an acknowledgement to everyone here and joining us remotely as well. We're going to take a quite quick detour to technical assistance and audits as a part of grants. Several cycles ago, the committee provided recommendations to have technical assistance through a request for proposals. It wasn't available through GOBIS 4, but the reason we're refreshing it now is that it will be one of the discussion questions posed to you. So folks may recall that a couple of years ago, there were 3 separate scopes of services on the slides we see here, 3 separate awards. And the hours provided, total amount of verified equity applicants assisted, which suggests that there is a level of appetite for these types of services. So hold this in your back pocket. We'll get to it as far as a discussion question, but contextualizing some of the technical assistance that was previously provided free of charge for anyone who is verified as an equity applicant. Also, for peace of mind, oftentimes we hear whether grant funds are being used appropriately. And we wanted to communicate to everyone here in the community that not only are we routinely audited by state government departments, but also through our local controller's office as well. And taking that one step further, the Office of Cannabis also conducts audits for its grantees over the last several years. Grantees are randomly selected for audits. It can take the form of on-site visits. You say you're going to pay for plumbing. Let's see that progress towards plumbing, or a desk audit that might require additional supporting documentation. So that's what auditing can generally look like, and it's up and down the state level, local level as well. With that brief detour, we are back to GoBiz round 5. This is the pot of money that will be discussed for the 2025 grant cycle. Out of the award, about $1.8 million is available to be dispersed to the community. This is about a shade over $200,000 to $300,000 more than our prior award as a part of this current GoBiz 4 cycle. So noting that there's additional funds available to determine what the best use for that would be under eligible purposes. As a reminder, there are eligible expense categories that has grown over time and has been a function of being community driven. Early on, there were just a handful, but as we've learned more through each cycle, folks will let us know, and through the committee, how to better utilize some of these grant funds. The goal is to expend as much as possible. The goal is 100%, and we continue to strive towards that goal. We have collectively some of the best utilization rates in the state, routinely in excess of 95% of utilized grant funds. The new category that we're delighted to share with everyone, and what we've heard from operators today, is that we've worked hard to establish a new category of eligible expenses, and that's acquiring commercial property. Folks can leverage their grant funds to buy the business that they operate in to minimize a lot of that friction between landlord and tenant. As far as we know, this is the first of its kind in its state as a part of GoBiz, and we're excited to see where this lands. So bearing that in mind, this has been a long journey, and there are many people to thank to make this a reality.
Thanks, I feel like Jeremy's being a little modest. The grants team, we've highlighted it before. The original expense categories, I believe there were 8, and our grants team worked very hard to expand it with the state to 13.
Thank you. So it's simply a collective effort. There's no one person responsible for policy. This is just a great example of community coming together to turn an idea into a reality.
Yes.
As far as tentative timelines, we can expect something similar that we've experienced this current year, launching letters of intent in the early part of 2025, contracting. And then one of the reasons why we're able to have successes with our expenditure rates is because midway through the grant cycle, we reevaluate folks' expenditure levels. If they meet a certain threshold, last year it was 70%, they're eligible for redistribution of unspent grant funds. The reason for this is because in order for San Francisco to be eligible and apply for subsequent grants, we must expend at least 80% of our grant award. Out of all eligible jurisdictions in the state, we're one of a handful who has been awarded this grant year in and year out since its inception. Grant disbursement. So hearing some comments, not just today, but previously, why eligibility criteria changes from year to year. Every grant award we bring in front of the oversight committee to discuss and determine disbursement criteria, and that can change based on the eligible expenses that are available, the size of the award as well. So reiterating here that These eligibility criteria may change year to year, which is why it's important for folks to participate and speak during public comment about how this may affect them or the community at large. We will walk through 3 separate buckets of discussion questions. I will preview all 3 for you now, and then we will take them in turn prior to having a more wholesale discussion to promulgate recommendations per discussion question. There will also be an opportunity for public comment as well, but just so we can digest some of the questions and take them in turn. So rapid fire here, discussion question number 1 will be whether the committee is interested in the Office of Cannabis exploring a set aside of about $250,000 of the grant award to be used for waivers for all equity businesses in San Francisco. One of the reasons we pose this discussion question is it's not unusual over prior cycles for folks to be deflated about not being eligible for any money. This was one idea posed to you all as a way to ensure all equity businesses benefit in some manner through financial assistance, in addition to technical assistance. So discussion question 1, the Office of Cannabis should explore a fee waiver, and we'll discuss some things to be mindful of as we chat about that one further. Discussion question number 2, whether the committee is interested in the Office of Cannabis exploring a request for proposal to contract with technical assistance providers to provide technical services to the committee. Discussion question number 2. Discussion question number 3, what direct grant eligibility criteria would the committee like to recommend for the 2025 grant cycle, including a date to essentially freeze the pipeline to determine who may be eligible for grants in 2025. There's some more nuance behind these questions, but this is just to preview it, get the juices flowing, start thinking about these things, love the note taking over there, and then we'll address these one by one. As far as discussion question number 1, one of the caveats here is San Francisco has not yet explored a program like this. So if the committee were to recommend something like this, we will explore it further, but there is potential that we may encounter additional roadblocks that we haven't contemplated yet. So this is very much a step 0, but a very interesting idea for you all to contemplate.
Jeremy, if I could just speak to that. Please. Make it a little more concrete. Jeremy's totally right, that this is not something that's been pursued in the past by our office, meaning there are unknowns. Those unknowns are the sort of mechanisms and machinations with other city departments. It's not as if anyone's gone through this program is. That's not as if you apply for a grant from our office and then we're cutting the checks to be distributed to you. There are local city departments that we work through to ultimately distribute the dollars. So that's one caveat I think that is important here is this is an idea. It's built off the feedback that we've received and we've heard this committee entertain last year and wrestle with. And we are optimistic that this is something we could do, but it is a little bit uncharted and we would be venturing out on this path for the first time, but we are optimistic. It's just, we want to be very transparent about how new this is as well.
So with that, happy to let the committee members discuss amongst one another. I know we have Aunt Antoinette in the virtual world, but if any questions come to mind or if you want to workshop this amongst yourselves at this time, this is a great opportunity to do so. I know it's a lot to take in, but starting with discussion question 1, whether the committee is interested in the city exploring this concept further.
I think that would be fantastic. Yeah, 250K, I mean, for 50 licenses or more, if it's possible, I think that'd be great to kind of just spread, especially seeing that we have a little bit more with this grant cycle. It's like, okay, let's raise all those just a little bit.
So thank you, David.
I feel the same way as David. It seems like a very good thing that benefits many.
Yeah, go ahead. No, my thought was, if if it's not able to happen, if there's a kind of mechanism that doesn't actually allow that to go through, with the idea, it just goes back to the regular fund?
Excellent question. That's right. It would be reallocated for direct grants, likely as a part of the allocation effort.
So I'm also in favor of it. I just want to know what are or Director Patel talk about some of the city roadblocks that they're working on. What are some of the state issues that you, maybe there are known unknowns and unknown unknowns, but what are you looking at from the state?
Unknown unknowns.
Right. Sure. Right.
So with that expand on that, we thought about our language and we don't anticipate challenges from the state. It would be more at local levels and what the business and tax regulations say, fee waivers, what legislation intervention is required before we distribute. And then once we pass that hurdle, whether there's an easy mechanism to be able to bring the 50 businesses into the fold that doesn't overly tax the office because it is a big lift. So those are the things we think. But like I said, we are optimistic.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's good to have all the equity business access to it, so.
Thank you. I'll, yeah.
I was just gonna throw out a little bit of math there too, right? So, and a reminder, the reason why we think we apply to about 50 equity businesses, just some quick math that we did on the back end, because all equity operators, they get their first year's fee waived already. So between the operators that would be new and already getting that waiver, this would really would apply to existing equity businesses, right? That, would have to pay maybe in their second or subsequent years.
Right, and just making sure our virtual world's accounted for. Antoinette, did you want to weigh in?
No, I mean, I think everything's going good. I like the conversation so far. So, I mean, the discussion so far. So,
Thank you, Antoinette. It appears that the committee unanimously would like to recommend this. We'll pin it right now. It's a soft recommendation. We'll solidify things, I believe, after public comment. All right. Moving on to discussion question number 2. Whether the committee is interested in Office of Cannabis exploring a request for proposal, often RFP. My God. To discuss potential technical assistance for the community. And this is a good example of a thing where we've seen cannabis fatigue set in over recent years. Just seeing this room start to fill up is a good thing as folks embark in the next chapter of what the cannabis industry might entail. So as I artfully delay while folks get situated, we will then discuss discussion question number 2, bearing in mind that historically technical assistance has been offered for free for all of our in excess of 400 verified equity applicants. So whereas the next discussion question will talk about direct assistance to applicants or businesses, this is an element that captures all equity applicants regardless of whether they have an application in the system or not, as they think of other things they may pursue, whether the permitted landscape is right, brand development. This isn't to steer anyone in a particular direction, but just to help put this into context. So with that, discussion question number 2, whether the committee is interested in the OOC pursuing an RFP to provide technical assistance offerings.
I'll jump in first. I do absolutely love the idea of permit support, grant support, business development. I do initially think that there are programs in the city that are run by some amazing people that help with those programs already. And my thought is that there's 60 licenses that are active that we could put that money to. And then I think if we didn't put that 150 towards that, it would be 2,500 at least per license. I've got to imagine they would appreciate that more than everybody getting more opportunity to sell that when it's already so impacted. So I've got to take a triage type mechanism.
Thank you, David. Rest of the committee, yeah, Shay?
I think my question is, do we have any, maybe this in the slide earlier about the hours? Right, but do we have any idea of what it is that the population of VEAs really needs, in terms of, right?
Sure, so I'll defer to public comment for that, really sort of officiating this conversation. But what I can say in our observations of community outreach or many folks may feel like they don't have the tools yet to minimize those barriers to entry. So whereas some folks are able to move forward with getting an application in the system or something tangential to the permitting landscape, when we talk about equity, some folks may need varying levels of support to recognize some of their cannabis dreams, whether it's I want to enter the workforce and I'd like a job to learn more, or I'd like to do something to get an actual permit. The equity community is not a monolith, but I can certainly share those observations. There's a strong desire by some folks to be able to take that next step. And here we see nearly 900 hours of those services to help folks make that next step. So that was a lot of words. I'm not sure that addressed your question, but this is an area where it's really important that folks participate during public comment. Don't take it from us, take it from the community.
Maybe I'll just add to that these numbers, the hours of service and the total number of the applicants assisted with this for one for this iteration.
Yeah, I'll just say I'd be very interested in hearing from, equity operators that own dispensaries in the city and, what their needs are. Yeah, just thinking it's more helpful to put them on the back end. People are already operating and it's already difficult out there and people are going through hardships, even operating. So my thought is putting them on the front end where there's already enough people and they may not get to the end stage. As somebody who tried to go through the process and realized later down the line that there wasn't enough money to get to that final stage, like maybe not pushing them in that situation where they've already invested that much more time, that much more energy in like a situation that won't benefit them. From looking forward to hearing public comment. So,
And perhaps just to give Antoinette some space to chat if you'd like to weigh in as well, whether technical assistance is the committee would like to recommend to OOC explore that further. So Antoinette, just giving you a shot at weighing in.
Hey guys, TA is always a good thing. I mean, we're here to support, and folks who are reapplying, renewing, of course they're going to need some type of TA support, So I think we should always include technical support in every grant application process. So,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you, Antoinette.
sure.
Thank you.
With
With that, it seems like undecided perhaps unless folks want to continue to weigh in.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Is it, the 150K, is that the money? Is there a way to do it like for $100,000, like $50,000?
Sure, you're welcome to provide a range, go-biz of state grant or puts a cap at up to 10% of the grant award may be allocated.
So up to 180.
More or less. The specific dollar amount, but for the purpose of orienting us, yeah. At that range. And I know folks are chomping at the bit for public comment, and these are all excellent questions, and there will definitely be some public comment here. I think bearing in mind something to be cognizant about is that the amount of money available can inform what type of applications you get for TA. So for instance, just for the purpose of this conversation, if there's something like a $20,000 award, it might not entice the potential TA providers to provide that type of service that the committee would be looking forward to. Not to steer in a particular direction, but that's in our experience, that is something, a variable to consider.
I don't really have a reason to be opposed to this.
Yeah, I don't see that either.
No, and I also would, I'm also for this, but also, in talking about the amount of funds
for this, like doing the maximum would probably benefit everyone. You know, if you're doing permit support, for instance, and you actually have support to figure out what to do, you might not get yourself into a position where you're having to reapply for things and such, and then use more of the grant funds down the road. So rather than capping the amount, you know, it's saying, okay, we want to really whittle it down and only give a small amount for technical assistance, like putting resources into that may help, you know, your grant dollars go farther in the future, just because they actually know or more informed and qualified in what they're actually doing. So I'd just like to comment on that before they're always true. Exactly.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
save money in the following.
Yeah.
I'd be moving forward.
See some good knowledge, we'll move on to question number 3. So to recap, there appears, similar to question number 1, there appears to be a soft recommendation by COC for the OC to explore technical assistance opportunities, and we'll flesh that out subsequent to some public comment. Lastly, question number 3 discusses eligibility criteria. Who should be eligible for direct grant assistance? As a refresher, for the current cycle as a part of GoBiz 4, the committee had recommended last year that as of the date on the screen, the end of December 23, applicants must have been an equity applicant with a cannabis business permit application submitted. The equity applicant must own at least 51% of the corporate applicant, and the equity applicant's business permit application must have been formally referred to planning and have the status of build out or approved. One note that might be interesting to make is as a part of this last cycle, we did see one equity business actually raise their equity applicants' ownership from 40% to 51% in order to be eligible for grants. We have one example of that, but it certainly was notable. And just mentioning that for you all here. So the question posed to you all is about what date the OOC should capture potential eligible grantees. Last year, there was a bit of a runway between the oversight committee and that date to allow folks to continue to move through that application process in order to be eligible. So what date, what ownership percentage, and where in the permitting process should they be to be eligible for grants? Last year, it was determined build out or further because the further an applicant is along in the permit process, the more eligible expenses they've likely incurred, was the rationale, just to refresh that. With that, I'll leave it to the committee members to discuss.
I have a question about the criteria that we had for 2024 versus the survey results information that we got, right?
Yeah.
We're only through GoBiz 3 on the survey results broken down by demographic categories. So we don't have survey results for 2024, which is the criteria that we're kind of looking at right now as a frame of reference for next year. I feel like a little bit hamstrung by that, I guess, because as we're talking about whether these criteria that we have in front of us are the right ones, I want to know what the results are that we're getting out of these criteria. So if there's anything the office can help us with in terms of maybe you have for 6 months or anecdotal evidence, anything.
You know, it's an excellent point, and some of this is a sequencing issue where it takes a lot of work to get the program eventually launched, and there's that natural lag time. Moreover, the state's annual reporting requirement isn't until the end of the year as well. And sometimes, for better or for worse, we have to make determinations based on the information in front of us, whether complete or not. And that's borrowing a term from a planning commissioner that has been very helpful. So your point is well taken. those stats will come and they'll inform subsequent programs, but as of now, this is the data that we have.
I might just add a calcul out of the cohort of eligible grantees that met the criteria that is displayed on the screen. Almost every grantee, received their award and is eligible for the district.
Yes, would it be helpful just to mention, I'm not super familiar with them, but, we've had these grants iterations, we've got criteria for each iteration. Do you want to speak to a little bit, like historically, the previous COCs? Like, because they've made very, very similar recommendations to this, trying to determine the same criteria, right? Like the criteria for 3 or for 2, or, right, like.
Sure. So without the benefit of the specifics in front of me, what I can say is for COVID's one, it was at a 40% threshold, nearly 90 grantees. A significant amount of those folks were unable to recognize the entirety of their award due to where they were in the permit process and the amount of eligible expenditures they were able to incur. It did evolve over time to 51% or more. Also, a function of the smaller pool of money, folks may recall as a part of last year's discussion was whether to keep it at 40 or 51%. And by having a smaller pool of money and more grantees, brought folks awards to, this is just for the purpose of the discussion, around $10,000 or so. Whereas with the eligibility criteria, committee members were able to promulgate that award jump to about $60,000 for the 51%ers or higher, which was about 23 or so. The supplier process is also very challenging for folks, how to become a registered supplier in the city to receive grants. So take it for what it's worth. Those were the facts at the time. Commenters are right to point out that the criteria has changed. These aren't easy recommendations to make, but we're hopeful that one, we have more folks in this building to provide some public comment, and that some of the creative solutions, whether it's additional fee waivers and TA, may help to minimize some of the concerns wherever things land. So I forget who posed the question. I forget if I was going to answer someone's question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's helpful. It is kind of what it is. I mean, on the specifics of the criteria, I don't have a problem with the December 31st date for this year. I mean, I think we're even in better situation than we were in last year, if I remember correctly, earlier in the year. So I don't see a problem with that date. On the 51%, I think this is the same conversation that we probably want to have again with public comment, about, it's the same amount of money, right? It just depends on how much to how many, right? And but that. I mean, I also think that the criterion that we had from the previous round about the status where they were in terms of built out or approved, I think that was really smart of us, and I really hope that we kind of hew to that, because we really don't want to be in a situation where we're leaving money on the table at any point. So
what may be helpful and what we prepared is Scott's going to walk through some of the different permutations of award amounts, so folks can identify what those awards may look like based on ownership percentage and place in the permit process.
Yeah, Jeremy set up well here. We have gone through this data before. We've kind of consolidated all these questions into one big question, mostly because we wanted to also frame the discussion around the waivers and the TA program, whether we'd be introducing that as well. So I'm going to go through these slides, real quick as one by one, and then we can all go back and look at them as a group again. Just let me know if you want to see another slide before, right? So this slide is depicting if we were to take the total award, the total dispersible amount, right? And this would be no waiver and no TA program. This is what the breakdown would kind of look like. What you'll notice is that these numbers here, these first numbers that are before the dollar amounts, These represent the number of applicants within that pool. Those numbers are not really going to change, right? Because, you know, the number of 51% owners or more who are approved is 14, or at least at the moment that I pulled this data, which was a couple of days ago. So that number is not going to change, but you will notice that the numbers within the parentheses here are going to be shifting as we look through these different permutations of how the award might work, right? So one example, if we were to give take the total award and split it up just on the operators that are currently open and are 100% owners, that would only be 8 operators, and they would each be getting close to $300,000, right? On the other end of the spec, or on the other end of this chart,
Perhaps because there was actually, I'm sorry, yeah, Shay.
I was just gonna ask if we have a breakdown as to operator types, in the supply chain.
oh, so it's all equity applicants, obviously, for the grant award. And then, I mean, I can't give you exact numbers here, but I would say this is overwhelmingly storefront retail. Some delivery retail and a handful of supply side businesses. But the vast majority of equity operators that we have operate storefront retail businesses.
Can you possibly have numbers for both and how that breakdown would be?
Hey,
I do have it in our back pocket. I'm inclined to suggest, because there's a soft approval for TA, that we
Go through to that. Yep.
those numbers. And then to your point, just for formatting, to keep it clean, we simplified it, but Scott will be able to address what.
I can speak into this. Yeah, actually.
Yes.
Yes, I can speak into that in a moment. But yeah, because we have the soft approval on a waiver and TA, this would be the most applicable slide to be looking at, right? So again, the numbers of the pool of applicants doesn't shift very much, but the award will. As we discussed, the waiver total would be about $250,000. The TA original proposal, at least that this data is based on, was setting aside 150 for TA programs. So this would leave us with 14 100% owners and 24 51% or more owners. And we'd be looking at awards ranging from close to $60,000 on the lower end there with the bigger group of applicants to closer to $100,000 with the smaller group here. In terms of 40% or more, I do have some of that written down here. If we were to bring in 40% or more owners, the box here that says 24, right? The total pool would jump to 79, and the award would come down to $18,000. In the most inclusive version of that, which would be, build out and approved 40% and up. So we would see a dip of about $42,000 or so.
Perhaps the additional thing to consider is this is frozen in time as of this last week. It's reasonable to think that as the time elapses to December, that additional folks may be eligible. So this is right now, but I think you can consider that the final landing spot will likely be a little bit less than what these slides have.
Yeah. Well, I will also, alternatively, right, it could increase in the sense that we could have folks moving out of planning and into the build out stage, who would then, increase that pool of applicants as well. So something to consider, but the numbers are open to adjustment in terms of where we are in the process at the time. Yes.
Is the 100% BEA ownership requirement, is that just, I don't remember that being discussed before. Is that just kind of like thrown in for a frame of reference here to give us something to think about?
So last year, the numbers that the slides, we had multiple different charts that we were looking at for relating to different aspects of this question, whether it was the date, or whether it was the total dollar amount. We have simplified this down for ease of just like how it's presented and looking at it. But I will note that this slide, in terms of last year, we had looked at 100% as a possible category.
Okay.
I think the committee just determined that they felt 51% or more was a better pool of applicants, just because I think, if I remember the discussion correctly, it was because the pool was so small.
Not only that, it's there are endless permutations, right? But a part of that 100% marker is in our processing priority. There was legislative intervention several years ago, which carved out the #1 priority for 100% owners. So it's a function of that as well.
And it's also worth mentioning that in past recommendations for past grant iterations, there have been recommendations for sole proprietors receiving a certain chunk. That's a little more than if you want.
Yeah. Well, I'm really interested in public comment. I think, I don't know if my colleagues are as well, because, I mean, what I recall from the discussion last year was we really wanted to make sure that these awards were making an impact. And what I know I've heard, since what we voted on last year to now, and now we're having this conversation again, is, are we hitting the right number of operators, right? To me, like $18,000, doesn't sound like a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but maybe we can hear from the public about, maybe that will think differently for me, but I think that's where I'm at on the, yeah.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, do we want to move to public comment?
Real quick, I would, seeing that we have more money for the grant this year, I would love to open it up and again, personally, I think 40% above would be amazing to open up that, even if I've heard some people mention maybe like a tier system where there's a chunk for 100%, a chunk for 50%, whatever that be, I'd love to hear what the public has to say. And then, yeah, I agree with you, Dave, we do a good year, that's okay with me, build out and improve would be fantastic. If we even want to just focus on improve, there's an argument there, but like, again, I think actually hearing from everybody that its super effects will be incredibly informative, so. Sure, thank you all for coming.
Right before we do, just giving Antoinette so we have to weigh in.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Are you guys asking me for input?
Proceed if you had any input at this stage before we move to public comment.
Get any input at this stage, believe we would move to any. Oh yeah, I have no comments at this time. Thank you, guys.
Public comment?
So yeah, public comment.
Yes. Yes. All right. One moment here. Okay. I'm gonna monitor from over here. We definitely have some hands raised online that we will get to. For folks that are online, I'm going to read the public comment instructions aloud just so we can leave this discussion question up for folks to reference. So please pay close attention. For any members of the public attending in person, please feel free to line up here to provide your public comment on this item. For our remote viewers, please note that you have two options to provide public comment at this time. The first option is to call in by phone. If you would like to use this option, please dial 1-415-655-0001, followed by this access code, 2490-464-0581. You may need to enter the meeting passcode 279-67895, and then press *3 when prompted to do so. You may be muted if there are others in the queue before you. If so, please wait until you hear a prompt on your phone to unmute. This is your indication that it is your turn to comment. Please press *6 to unmute and begin your public comment. Once your time has elapsed, we'll be muted again. Option 2, you can submit your comments by chat. The chat box is open and I will read the comments as they come in. And I will also note if anyone's using their computer, you may also get a request to unmute if you have raised your hand, and then you should be able to just speak into your computer after we have unmuted you. So we do have some folks here in person who would like to comment. We're going to start with them. I'll remind folks you have 3 minutes to provide your comment. I will begin the timer as soon as you start speaking, and I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Feel free to start your public comment.
Thank you. Chris Calloway again, retail store owner. I received 4 rounds of grants, I think, at this point. So I was able to use those grant funds to open up 100% own acquisitions. No barrel. And I have a great landlord there, actually, who's very accommodating to me and really helped me get through the program. It gave me the space to do so. What I really love seeing is that you guys have opened it up to maybe the ability to purchase commercial real estate. That would be an amazing thing to be able to do in the program. What I will say is that being a 40% owner of a dispensary, and the Castro is actually the first equity dispensary opened through the program, I get about 0.01% of the profits of that business, right? Very inequitable. And I would hate for a single penny to go to those partners because they've kind of set up a system where they can just pass through all the profits to themselves, essentially. It's a nightmare. So I would be very careful in giving away grant funds to people like that that aren't really participating in the program in an equitable way. Technical assistance, legal goes a really long way for equity applicants to be able to avoid some of the pitfalls of the program. Also, it would be great if there was technical assistance to get through planning. Like that would be really nice to have some sort of expediter that worked on behalf of equity applicants. Perhaps planning could even waive our fees. You know, it sounds crazy for the planning department to do that, but everybody else has kind of opened up the doors for the equity permitting aside from planning, I would say. It's really the hardest hurdle to get through. And I'd like to say there's one other comment I wanted to make. And, oh yeah, the fee waivers, we were gonna put aside $250,000 for that. I would say cut out the MSOs that have $50 million in the bank, don't give them a $5,000 fee waiver, that doesn't make sense. And I was gonna be curious if this can be done at the city level. The fee waiver for like the first year of business was waived. Can you do that something similar to equity businesses that are either 100% owners, 51% owners? I just think you guys have to be really careful with 40% owners because a lot of the equity applicants have been taken advantage of through that ownership percentage. They're not really the CEOs of these businesses. I think they were kind of promised things that weren't delivered. So just be really careful on that one. And other than that, thank you so much for distributing grant funds to people like me because it makes the world of difference if people to keep our businesses open, keep operating. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your public comments. The next individual in line, feel free to go up to the podium, state your name for the record if you like, and begin your public comment. I will indicate when you have 30 seconds remaining.
I really think this should be more of a mathematical equation. So you guys literally just heard 70% of the people that receive grants were wiped off before. Not happening. And what I would say to you guys is, even if it is 18,000, that's a month's rent for a lot of people. That's sales tax and excise per month for a lot of people. I would just go by the math. You guys have a lot of access to a lot of data. If a place is doing 5 million a year, they're eating just fine. That's 13.5 a day. They're doing great. They don't need the help. Okay. The people that are doing a lot less, maybe that's something to consider and take a look at. I was gonna say, Mr. Talley, the same thing. So I think a 40%er should get X amount. I think a 51% should get X amount. I think a 100% should get the most. Let's just say, 10% more and then 25% more for the 100%, which makes sense to me. Sure, why not? I will say this, having gone through the process, it is a little interesting, going through everything. It does take a while, but I will say a couple of things. So a lot of us don't have traditional banking. And one of the biggest expenses for all of us is rent. So like most people, and I hate admitting this in public, but I have to basically deposit into my own account, send my landlord from my personal account. And it became a little bit of an issue. It's like, hey, we know what you're doing, but it doesn't say your corporate name on the check, which you sent to your landlord. And that kind of became a bit of an issue. And one more thing, and I know that it's small, but you really have to have like the exact number or they're not going to honor it. So like if there's 69 in the fund that you can have, if you send 70, they'll tell you to put less. Does that make sense to everybody? Like you can't put over, like, hey, I have 80,000 expenses, here you go. They're like, no. You have to submit a little bit less than what it is, and then we'll give you the grant. So something you guys might want to look at for sure. But like I said, I don't think it's fair to exclude the original applicants, let's just say too. Like everybody's hurting right now, everybody needs it. I think the fairest thing to do would be, tier system sounds fine. Sounds about right. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comments. The next individual in line, feel free to step up to the podium, start your public comment, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
And Hawaii Success Centers, recipient of technical assistance.
Oh, that's good.
Grants. You know, I've been doing this work for about 7 years. Most of it was unfunded. We received 2 grants, 3 grants actually, from the Office of Cannabis. What I will say is it's a great honor to be at an event somewhere, and someone says to me, without your help for professional development, placing me in a job where I can learn the business from inside, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be where I am. And I get that pretty much everywhere I go from it. So when you're talking about taking away or having professional development, doing workforce, that's what I do. That's my heart, that's my heart's work. And so for those that I've touched, and there's many, I have a cultivator that's got his own, he's one of 10 organically certified licenses in the state of California. I have several folks who have now realized the dream of owning a dispensary. Some sole proprietors, some with the 51% ownership and things of that nature. So we need to know, because a lot of folks did not go to college, and they need the professional development to help them, first of all, not get screwed with these contracts. So when you're considering that, I think it's something that really needs to continue on. Without some of these programs, you know, right now we're going through financial cuts. I lost 20% of my grant. And so I'm looking to still get out here and still do the work or give the same type of services that our community needs. So when you're talking about technical assistance, it's so very. Okay. Gosh, I'm gonna lose my time because I'm out of breath. And I would love to see some of those, the folks that are partners with the big conglomerates, making sure that that money does not go to them. I agree with some of the previous comments, because they already have a lot of money. It's the sole proprietors that are going to thrive and realize the dream, and maybe even realize bringing generational wealth to their families. Okay?
Thank you so much for your public comment. I think, yeah, feel free to step up to the podium, state your name for the record if you like, and begin your public comment. I will let you know when you have 30 seconds left. There you go.
So I'm Rudy. I'm an equity owner and a partner, 40% owner at 518 Brandon Street, City Store. Thank you guys for allowing me to speak, share public comment. I would like to see some of the grants that we get. I'm very thankful that we get them be used for people who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. What I mean by that, I'm really affected by the war on drugs. We was affected by the war on drugs. I was, my community was. And so I would like to see some of the money that's given to us go to families who's affected with gun violence, families who can't pay their rent, families who can't even pay phone bills. Some of the proceeds that I have from my store, the profits I use to go to that for my community. But it's hard when you're dealing with a partner, right, that probably don't see eye to eye with that. And so I would like to see some of that funding, the grants, we're able to award more of that, go to the people, even the people who work at the store, some of them who are just people who are getting a certain amount of pay, help them pay for maybe groceries, pay for their rent, help them out. So when they come to work, they ain't stressing as much, right? But I definitely would like to utilize some of that money for the people. I was put in that position because that's what I want. My store that I have is built for reentry, right? It's built for the families and the communities that's really affected by the war on drugs. So hopefully we can utilize some of that money for that. Thank you. And also, lastly, we need to make sure we get the technical assistance with the lawyers. Very important that we have that because they helped me through the whole process. You guys helped me out by giving me a lawyer. It really got me through the paperwork, which for me have to. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Minnie, we do have a few members online who would like to comment. Some of them requested that we put the instructions back up on screen. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I know there's already one individual who's raised their hand to give folks a little bit more time. And I know this is a big public comment item. I'm going to read the instructions one more time, and then we're going to go to the first person in the queue for online public comment. For any members of the public, for our remote viewers, please note that you have two options to provide public comment at this time. First option is to call in by phone. If you would like to use this option, please dial 1-415-655-0001, followed by this access code 2490-464-0581. You may also need to enter the meeting passcode 279-67895. And then this is very important, press *3 when prompted to do so. That will raise your hand and it will show me that you would like to make a comment. You may be muted if there are others in the queue before you. If so, please wait until you hear a prompt on your phone to unmute. That is your indication that it is your turn to comment. Please press *6 to unmute and then begin your public comment. Once your time has elapsed, you will be muted again. Option 2, you can submit your comments by chat. The chat box is open and I will read your comments as they come in. Just to give those folks a little bit more additional time, we do have one comment in the chat box, so I'll read that aloud first, and then we will go to our verbal online comments. So this comment from the chat, sorry, I need to get to the beginning of it here. Would you support a social equity incubator accelerator to address those issues and providing an on-the-job training certification to allow anyone in social equity to learn and elevate without having to be a license holder? That's one comment from the chat. And now we have a few folks who have raised their hands to indicate they would like to chat. I'm going to unmute the first individual. When you hear the prompt to request to unmute, again, please either press the unmute button on the WebEx app or press *6 on your phone to unmute and begin your public comment. I will mute you when the 3 minutes is up.
My name is Tiffany. I've been an equity applicant since 2019. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity. I spoke a little bit in the chat about the situation. I'm about 5 to 10 feet inside a buffer zone, and it was found after I had signed the lease. So I was wondering if in the future we can consider, instead of build out and approve, maybe just outlier situations like this where I was almost approved, but just the luck of the draw, 5 to 10 feet. I'm about 5 feet. It's not that far, but anyway, I have to uproot and start over again. And like I said, it's been about 5 years. Just thank you for this opportunity to potentially receive some resources to keep going. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your public comments. I will now unmute the next person in line.
Hi, my name is Duncan Lai. I'm a owner of an equity business in San Francisco. I think that what needs to be recognized in this scenario here is that some people actually did just establish regular partnerships as they built their businesses, regardless of the equity split of 51, 100%. And that's often how a lot of businesses are built and operated, not just in cannabis. The city and the state wrote some bad legislation that tried to create these one-size-fits-all scenarios, but clearly people took advantage of that. And the industry is still struggling. The people that are in this industry are still struggling with the fallout of poorly written legislation. There were lots of promises made and very few kept. That said, I would like to commend that the Office of Cannabis continues support of the industry and its operators. But if we want to punish the MSOs, and many of which have come and gone, I get that. But there are many other businesses, clearly, by the numbers, that have the 40% ownership structure and are doing the right thing by the people in the partnerships, as well as the communities that they operate in and beyond. I think holding up to not just the spirit, the letter of the law, but actually the spirit of the law as well as it was intended. Obviously we're a 40% equity owned business, but we would hate to be carved out of any grants, because we have received grants in the past and they have been tremendously beneficial to our business. And they come in all different shapes and sizes of support. And so we are not in a free market. We're overtaxed and overregulated, and every dollar helps, whether it's some of your rent, some of your being broken into and being able to recover costs there. This is a challenging business to be in, and we appreciate the support that the city can provide, and we hope that it continues to look at all of the challenges that are present in this business for all of its social equity applicants. And I think, again, this committee's responsibility is to regulate, is to suggest to the state, but it's also includes governing the equity program, but it doesn't specifically say what parts of the equity program, right? The whole equity program in its totality. And so I think that it does have a responsibility to its existing equity applicants, all of them, and that are opening and operating, not just those that are still waiting to be to operate, and regardless of their 40, 51, 100% ownership. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comments. I'm going to allow for one more moment for folks to raise their hand. That would be by phone. You would press *6. If you are on the app, there should be a small button that looks like a hand near the bottom middle of the screen that you can press to indicate that you would like to make a public comment. We have another call-in user who would like to make a comment. You will hear a request to unmute momentarily. Feel free to begin your public comment. Press *6 to unmute and then begin your public comment. I will mute you when 3 minutes have passed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Sefa. I'm 100% equity owner of Obsidian Dispensary. I'd like to start my comments by, commending the Office of Cannabis for their continued efforts in improving this space for all of us. I'd also like to speak on the topic of technical assistance. Going through the process, I found that some of the technical assistance options or individuals or, groups that I've worked with work better than others. I can say from experience that, the Success Centers, absolutely was instrumental in my process of opening, in terms of, permit assistance and just every aspect of the process of opening up until opening. I'd like to make sure that there's some sort of, approved groups or individuals that have been proven to help equity applicants, actually do the work that, that they are, set out to do or saying that they're doing. Because I had some very, unpleasant or, not helpful, situations, with my experience, working with some of the technical assistance individuals or groups and so forth. But some of them did exceptional work and did exactly what they set out to do, like Ms. Angela White and Success Centers. So that's just my comment on technical assistance. And as far as the grant disbursements, I've been mentioning this for a while. I am, definitely in support of a tiered model, being that, 100% ownership is going to be prioritized, and, they should get a different amount, versus someone who's 40 plus or, whatever the case, 50, whatever the case. I think it just makes sense. And thank you all. That's my comment. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for your public comment. With that, Vice Chairperson, I do not see any other hands raised. I do not see any other comments in the chat box, and I do not see anyone else here in person who would like to comment.
Well, go ahead and jump in and sort of get some levity back in this room. a good thing. The amount of turnout here, thanks everyone for joining. Clearly, there's a lot of passion around this item. And because so many folks came and weighed in, we are unfortunately very short on our scheduled time. So what what the Office of Cannabis would like to float to the committee with our 10 minutes is because there seemed to be some unanimity with items 1 and 2, is folks are welcome to take a vote there. And with our remaining time, tabling item 3, the reason why we say that is to not rush into decisions, given how much information you all are digesting. It is up to you, but we clearly have a cap on 10 minutes, so I turn it over to you all, depending how you'd like to go.
Yeah, so we would want to, on the discussion question 1.
Yes. Yeah, so just a reminder, discussion question 1 was about setting aside about $250,000 for a fee waiver for equity applicants. This would be equity applicants outside of their first year already in operation for the annual legal fee, which is about $5,000.
Okay.
Would like to make a motion for that effect?
So motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, I'll take a vote on the motion to approve $250,000 being set aside for fee waivers for equity applicants. Chairperson Ollie Jamalian is recused. Vice Chairperson Adam Hayes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 10 is unfilled. Seat 11, Paula Wallace, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 12, Jagari Donaldson is also recused. Seat 13, David Augusta, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 14, Shay Gilmore, how do you vote? Aye. Seat 15 is currently unfilled. Seat 16, Antoinette Mobley, how do you vote? Oh, did we lose Antoinette? I think we might have lost Antoinette.
That quorum?
That is quorum if we've lost her. Let me see. Very quickly, let me see if Fred there.
So we need some. Still don't come away with the proper answer.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
We had more public insight on
I'm always begging, like, you gotta shoot down there. If you show up, you're supposed to put like on. You know what I mean? Just cool. So I'm saying. Okay, I was an impression of it.
I'm wondering if her phone is outside because she's joining through her phone, but yeah, I'm gonna try.
But like, they're so small. Yeah. And so much of it.
I'm almost certain because it's went straight to voicemail.
Yeah, that's right.
Do we want to? We have 6 minutes left. People.
So we do have 6 minutes, so we can give her
6 minutes, we can give her some time and try and get a.
Yeah.
And I think, well, while we're giving Antoinette more time to, I've heard a lot of us bring up our purpose and mission a few times, and I want us to make sure we have in front of us, right, our board, our bylaws. And there's 2 prongs to our purpose. One is to convene us to oversee these guys and by evaluating data, right? And that's what they give us. And so we evaluate it, and that's why we try to push them real hard to give us more, right? That's our purpose. Second purpose is to provide guidance and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on amendments to local laws like we're doing here. For what? To advance racial equity and facilitate socially responsible growth of this new industry by creating living wage jobs and economic opportunities consistent with the board's intent. So I really want us to kind of land real hard on, right? That's our purpose, advance racial equity, facilitate socially responsible growth by creating living wage jobs.
Thank you for that reminder, Shay. Antoinette, it looks like you were able to rejoin. Can you hear us all right on your end? She's probably.
Oh, hi there, dear. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's quite all right. I assume we lost power.
I did. I certainly did.
Antoinette, we were just in the middle of taking a vote on discussion question 1 about the fee waivers, the setting aside $250,000 of the grant award for fee waivers for all equity businesses. I've gone through the votes for the rest of the members, and I would like to ask how you would vote on that.
Okay, I have a question. When we speak about the fee waivers, what fee are we waiving? I mean,
so this would be money set aside for the annual renewal fees for cannabis businesses. They have to pay $5,000 to renew their permit. So this would be businesses that are already in operation and have been in operation for more than a year, because all equity operators have their first year fee already waived.
oh, okay, okay. So I support that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll put you down as an aye.
Aye. Yes, yes, aye.
Thank you, Antoinette. Moving on to discussion question 2, is the committee interested in the Office of Cannabis exploring a request for proposal to contract with a technical assistance provider to provide free support to verified equity applicants in areas of permit support, grant support, and business development? Again, this is setting aside $150,000 or an alternative amount that could be proposed by the committee up to $180,000 for technical assistance specifically. I'm going to open up the vote. Sorry, I guess we need a motion first.
I actually have a
Second.
Okay, I have a question, sorry,
Yes,
before I
sorry,
know
go
we're
ahead,
on time, but because I heard it come up a lot, can legal be a part of the technical assistance within this
I think we lost
realm?
it again.
Correct. It can be.
Or is it just these 3 things that are permits for
That's
grants?
just an example of last time, but we can build that into the RFP. And for what it's worth, it's also an eligible expense as a part of the direct grants too. So almost like a double hit there.
Okay.
Well, and it's worth noting that there are limitations to the types of legal services that can be provided. So for instance, litigation would not be.
Right.
I will also note that we did just lose Antoinette again. We may as well go through the members that are here, see if we can get her in the next minute or 2 to join, if there's a motion.
So do we have a motion?
I don't know why we're not doing the 180 over 150. Is there a reason?
I don't believe so. I don't know if we can have any exact.
We're not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we just say up to the maximum? Sure. Can we make that promotion?
I don't see a reason why not.
Yep, that could be the motion.
I move that we are interested in exploring an RFP with a contract to assistance provider up to the maximum that we're allowed to do.
Second.
Second? Or?
No, we're good. Are we also able to look at, so we're contracting with a different group, or they send like, an estimate of like what they're gonna do per hour? Or-
You would know better.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, so happy to address that as part of the
Email you.
next one, but that's, there's, we can bake in lots of parameters as well, balanced against some of the limitations Nikesh mentioned, like partnership disputes, litigation, it's a transactional nature.
Gorgeous, okay, perfect.
Okay, we had a motion for a vote on maximum TA, the allowable expense for maximum TA. Chairperson Ali Jamalian has recused himself. Vice Chairperson Adam Hayes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 10 is currently unfilled. Seat 11, Apollo Wallace, how do you vote? Seat 12, Jakari Donaldson also had to recuse himself. Seat 13, David Nogales Kelly, how do you vote?
Aye.
Seat 14, Shay Gilmore, how do you vote? Aye. Seat 15 is currently unfilled, and our final member, seat 16, is having some technical difficulties. I do not see them back on the call at this time. I think we will have to table this vote in addition to the vote on the final question.
Is there a way we can find that?
I think her phone has died at this point. She knows what she needs to do to get back on, so if she's able to, I think she will join.
Did she email later?
Yeah, it does need to happen during the meeting.
If this drops off, then we lose one, we can't actually.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't seen her rejoin yet.
It's right, a little bit, it's not going anywhere, and we can start doing some work.
Yeah, let's give it 5 more minutes in the event that she is come back.
This is round two. She dropped off before as well.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we reestablished that.
Yeah.
So let's give it 5 minutes, mainly for the purpose of taking vote, other than that, so we can be, is it sure?
Sure.
Sorry. Oh, that's about your head on it. It's like, wow, should we get her on another cell phone?
I was trying to read my. I got a real something. Read my voice.
Well, we would need to go through any proposed, well, we can't vote on.
Do you mean, okay, the next meeting, a little bit closer so we can have.
Oh.
No.
We did? Sorry, false alarm, false alarm.
Part of that's going to depend on. So yeah, come back. We want to-
Is that set up for?
Focus groups will happen around this.
Okay.
And so I assume that at least this committee will be convened, probably will be second or third. Okay.
What will most likely happen, just to fill some time here, is I will look at our calendar. I'll look at the availability of spaces here. I'll send out some proposed dates that will also align with these focus groups, or keeping in mind these focus groups. But we could certainly explore the possibility of having a sooner meeting where we don't discuss the focus groups because they won't be done yet, but we cap off this discussion if necessary.
I love that. I feel like we still have a little bit of discussion back there. But
Yeah.
It'd be, we'll have to look at. We'll have to look at.
Yeah.
Just sure that even makes sense for meetings.
No, totally, yeah. Yeah, we don't want to meet in late October and then again in the middle of November. We'd rather just meet in November.
With that, I suspect the next meeting will be first, second, third.
It's fine.
Okay. It's fine.
Yeah. Okay, we have lost quorum, so we are going to adjourn the meeting. We will pick up this second discussion question and third discussion question at whatever our next meeting is. Please, any remote attendees, monitor our website for updates, monitor our industry updates for updates on when the next Cannabis Oversight Committee meeting will be held, and we'll all connect digitally to schedule that as well. Thank you all very much for attending.
That's right.